Today we're going to discuss the Detroit Tigers outfield in 2024 and beyond. It's all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Thursday, November 16th, 2023. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All righty. Welcome back, everybody. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Hope everyone is having a fantastic start to their week. I guess we're already at Thursday. Happy Thursday, everybody. So we are going to discuss the outfield today. And I think that there's already been so many moving parts with the outfield, right? Obviously, the Cana trade. We'll talk about the Austin Meadows situation. He's still a part of this 40-man roster and in this outfield for the time being. And so there's still just like so many moving parts with it that I want to discuss just where it's at right now and if there is any room for additions internally or externally, what it might look like in 2024. And the like. And I just think that right now is a good time to do that, given the non-tender deadline with an outfielder's decision looming, and with one of our top hitting prospects in our organization being an outfielder, et cetera, et cetera. So we are going to discuss the outfield today, and tomorrow's show will obviously be entirely about the non-tender deadline and the decisions that loom for the Detroit Tigers. All right, cool. So let's talk about we'll call them the locks, okay? Riley Greene, the biggest lock in the organization to be in this outfield next year. So Riley Greene, obviously the Tommy John, right? That's a big thing. It's in his non-throwing arm, which I think is important to note, but that's still a big deal and something that he already got it once just on a contact play. You don't want him to necessarily repeat that. So I think that there is a chance that he starts off and plays some DH, a little more prominent of a DH role in the early parts of 2024, at least. We'll see how the season develops. Then Kerry Carpenter, another absolute lock for this team, going to play right field. I think that both of these guys have, we'll call it DH ability, okay? Designated hitter ability. I think that they both have some DH ability within them, and especially early on in the season again for Greene. But Carpenter is going to play DH at several times throughout the season, right? And a lot. He's going to play plenty of DH. Now, I think he's also going to get plenty of time in corner outfield. The thing that's important to remember about Carpenter, yes, he did really struggle defensively at the beginning of 2023 out in the outfield. That is no secret. But he did get better. And I think that that's important to note. Like, this guy, is he a plus defender yet? I don't think so. Yet, at least, no. But he's trending in the right direction, right? He went from like almost unplayably bad to like slightly below average or below average. But that's a huge step. That's a big step. And I do think that he improved mightily in the field. I think he improved mightily defensively. So I want to give him his flowers there for starters. And yeah, like he'll both of those guys will obviously be prominent parts of not only the outfield, but the offense as well. Going to be hitting in the heart of the lineup. Okay. So I want to start with those two. The other that's close to a lock, but not as much as those other two guys, is Parker Meadows. The only route that I could see it being even remotely possible that Parker Meadows was not this team's starting center fielder on opening day. I do think there's a possibility that if he goes into spring training and just cannot hit water if he fell out of a boat, then there's a chance that they go, okay, between Vierling, Greene, maybe Badu, etc., we can maybe kind of patchwork our way in center field until we feel that the offense is at a place where it's ready to be major league worthy. There's a chance for that, but I really do think that the plan right now on November 16th and the plan in going into spring training and the plan on opening day is going to be Parker Meadows to be the center fielder of this baseball team next year. And I'm so excited about what Parker Meadows can do for this ball club in 2024. I know, like, this is a guy that legitimately could be a big-time plus defender, 20 steals, 20 home runs that walks. Like, that's a legitimate possibility. That's very much within reach with Meadows. He's got pop. He draws walks. He's very, very fast. He's going to be one of the fastest players in baseball. He's a plus defender. He's got a lot of tools that I think a lot of people should be really excited about for 2024 and so on. I think the best case scenario is he's the center fielder of the future for this baseball team. Okay? So those three guys are the locks. Now, the next two we're going to discuss, I think, are relatively correlated to each other, even though one is just as much of a lock as everybody else, and one is probably the furthest thing from a lock we will discuss on this entire show. Okay? Mark Canha, obviously, being the traded acquisition that is going to be on this team on opening day next year, barring like catastrophic injury or something like that. He will be on this opening day roster. The thing with Cana is that there is a little bit of positional versatility there. I don't think at 35 we're going to see him at third base too much, even though he has played it before. But he's going to play corner outfield, and he's going to play first base as well. So I think that Torkelson just really struggled defensively. And he was really good at scooping the baseball, like elite at scoops. He was well below average, and that's like me being nice. He was like toward the bottom of the league in pretty much every other defensive metric besides scoops. Okay. So I do think that they're going to work in a few more, unless Torkelson turns it around and is a much better defender this year. They're going to work in a few more Torque DH days and Mark Canha at first base days. Okay. But for the most part, I expect him to play probably majority right field. With all of that, now comes the conversation of Austin Meadows. We will talk about Austin Meadows again tomorrow for the non-tender episode. We have already talked about Austin Meadows at length in this show this calendar year. Okay, we've talked about the situation. It's unfortunate. I wish him nothing but strength and peace in this time and whatever he's fighting. And on the field, the decision is obviously looming, and it occurs on Friday on what if the Tigers are going to tender him or not. And I think that I would be surprised if they did. I'm fully expecting them to non-tender him. Now, that doesn't mean it's impossible. I've been wrong plenty of times in my life and will be wrong plenty more times. But with him, I feel like the path that the organization is looking at is non-tendering, and if they really wanted to keep him as a part of the organization so that when he is ready to come back, if and when he is ready to come back, that they can give him an opportunity, then you sign him to a minor league deal with an invite to spring and you don't put him on the 40-man roster. Now, there is a chance that they tender him and then put him on the restricted list. That's a possibility. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth tomorrow. That's, you don't get paid on that list. You're not taking up a spot. That's something that they can do. But I just feel like after 2 years of this, he's probably non-tendered. And the reason why I have them talking about them together is because even though Meadows is a lefty and Canha's a righty, I don't think you go out and make a trade for a veteran corner outfielder unless you're pretty confident that Austin Meadows is not going to play baseball for you next year. That just makes sense in my head. And again, I've been wrong plenty. I could be completely off base about this, but that's the general vibe that I get from the situation right now. Okay, so that's 4 outfielders that are going to be on the team. One that is most likely not. And we got a few more names still to talk about. And that's the reason why I wanted to have this conversation about the outfield. It's crowded. There's a lot of conversations to be had. And some people are even talking about like still bringing more people in. I don't know if there's room for that, big dog, but we'll talk about it right after I tell y'all about our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is the best in the business, and you can score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. There's stuff like spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. You can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get started. There's plenty to bet on, right? Like I think the coolest thing, with Thanksgiving right around the corner, American Thanksgiving, don't want to alienate our faithful Canadian Tigers fans north of the border there. Love y'all dearly. But it's American Thanksgiving is right around the corner. And with that, we have Lions football. And there are always a lot of really fun player props on Thanksgiving. The Turkey Day kind of bets are kind of a tradition for some people. I can't wait. And it's very fun to take a look at those at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will be back tomorrow, baby. We're talking about the non-tender deadline, who the Tigers are going to tender, and whether it's re-signing or send to arbitration, etc., and who they may not. There's 2 big conversations with that tomorrow, but we'll talk about everybody. Okay, so we're talking about this outfield. This is where the conversation starts getting really, really, I'm not going to use the word fascinating, because I the joke at this point is that, like, I think everything is fascinating, which is, like, fair. I do say that about it. I genuinely feel that way, though, just when it comes to the sport of baseball and our Detroit Tigers. But I do think that the rest of the names we talk about is where the debate really comes in. I don't think anyone's going to deny that Greene, Carpenter, Parker, and Cana are going to be prominent fixtures in the outfield next year, unless you're like a big-time Parker Meadows hater, I guess. The rest is where it gets interesting. So Akil Baddoo, I don't have too much else to say. We have talked about Akil Baddoo at length on this show, his situation. I don't think that it is necessarily likely for him to get traded. I don't think that, like, direct of a statement is what I want to say. But I will say that if you were to rank every single bat on this major league roster, every non-pitcher, right? Yeah, bat, that's what I just said. Then you would certainly be ranking Akil Baddoo at the very top of the list. And I don't even think it's really particularly close. When it comes to, honestly, even if you throw in pitchers, I still think he's at the top of the list. Unless you really want to trade Matt Manning, I think he's probably the most likely trade candidate. And you are certainly taking calls on him. Does that mean that you are guaranteed to trade him and that a trade formulates 100% of the time when you're taking calls on somebody? No. But you are absolutely taking phone calls on Akil Baddoo. It's just he's a lefty. It's unfortunate. He's a lefty outfielder in an outfield full of lefties. And his production has been objectively much less than those other guys. I guess sans Parker Meadows, but Parker plays a significantly better defensive center field than Baddoo. So that is where he currently stands. I'm not penciling Baddoo to be on this opening day roster next year. He does have options, so you have a little bit of leverage in trade talks where you don't have to trade him. You can just put him in Toledo, and then when the time comes, when an injury happens, etc., you call him back up, and Baddoo still plays 80 to 100 games in a Tigers uniform next year. That's a very, very feasible route. Okay. And I know that a lot of people are fine taking because they still think very highly of Baddoo, myself included. But I do think that they're going to listen to phone calls. So we'll see what happens. Matt Vierling. Oh man, Matt Vierling. Matt Vierling is a fascinating conversation. Fascinating. Matt Vierling is a conversation because of his third baseness, right? We talked about DH-ness earlier. Vierling has third baseness. And we had a whole episode about the future of third base for the Detroit Tigers and 2024, specifically the outlook there for this upcoming season for the Tigers just last week. There is a chance that your opening day third baseman is Matt Vierling. No matter how much I dislike the idea, no matter how much you like or dislike the idea, that is something that we have to admit. That there is a very real chance Matt Vierling is this team's third baseman on opening day. Now, he still is going to get looks in corner outfield. And I think that that's important to note. But if the season started tomorrow, which it doesn't, but if it did, your opening day third baseman would be Vierling. And that somewhat opens the door for the final person I want to talk about, which is Justyn-Henry Malloy. I have gone back and forth on where JHM is getting playing time so many times this offseason already, and the offseason's barely started. This is like the most difficult conversation for me. Or the conversation isn't difficult. It's the most difficult, not debate, but it's the most difficult route, I think, because there's so many different variables with Malloy. The reason why he did not get called up last year was nothing to do with his performance at the plate. This guy walked more than anyone. He had over 20 home runs. He did everything they asked him to do at the plate. He doesn't have a defensive position, really. He has one next to his name because that's where he's been playing, but there is not a single position that this major league front office is confident that he can play long-term right now. Now, we've seen people develop into better defenders. Again, Kerry Carpenter is on the roster. We have firsthand experience with that. So I'm not saying it's never going to be a thing ever, but I'm saying in the short term, in 2024, who that we have talked about are you prioritizing at bats to over? I just said that backwards. Who are you prioritizing Justyn-Henry Malloy's at bats over in 2024? He's going nowhere near a major league center field, probably ever. Okay, so Parker Meadows is out of the question. Certainly not Riley Greene, and certainly not Kerry Carpenter. That's already 3 outfielders, and you have 3 outfield spots. So that's already behind the 8 ball. Mark Cana, you just traded for. Okay, now we talked about Cana getting some versatility at first base. Absolutely, right? For sure. But Spencer Torkelson can't play anywhere else. Okay, you're going to DH him. You're going to DH Justyn-Henry Malloy. Great. So you're never going to have then Cana, Torkelson, and Carpenter in the lineup at the same time ever if you plan on just DHing Malloy for the entire season. You are writing that off. I don't think this organization wants to do that. I don't think they want to put themselves in a position where those 3 guys can never play together. Which again, unless you're playing Kerry Carpenter in center field, which is obviously not happening, you'd be completely writing off. So, I mean, obviously, like Riley Greene has one off day. Okay, you can do it for a day. Sustainably, though. You're writing off that lineup combination. I think the route to him getting major league at-bats, I keep stopping and starting because my brain's going a million miles an hour with this, so I apologize. I think the route to him is Vierling would have to be your opening day third baseman and is like not listed as an outfielder. You'd have to start with that. And then I think if Malloy hit well and was a good enough defender, then you could pencil him in this roster next season. He would get plenty of looks at DH, and he would get plenty of looks in the corner. I still, even all of that being considered, don't know how many at-bats that actually is. Right? How many opportunities is that are you going to have? Okay, Vierling's out of the question. He's everyday third baseman. How many times are you going to want to sit one of not Meadows, because again, Malloy's not playing center field. Greene, Cana, Carpenter. The only real route here is he gets Vierling at third every day, and then Cana and Carpenter are like an exact perfect righty-lefty platoon, where Cana only plays against lefties and Carpenter only plays against righties. And that's it. Or like Torkelson has an off day and then whatever. But Torkelson's going to be a prominent part of the lineup, so that's not like a sustainable way. We're talking about sustainable methods to get this dude's at-bats at the major league level. It's hard to find. Okay? Let's keep the ball rolling. We'll keep talking about this. We'll talk about it next. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. This conversation really frustrates me because I want Justyn-Henry Malloy to play Major League Baseball for this team so badly. I love the dude. He perfectly epitomizes what this front office wants to do. He perfectly epitomizes what I want to see in a prospect and a good hitter. I wish nothing more than the ability to give him legitimate playing time at the Major League level in 2024. But the first 6 weeks of the season, assuming health for everybody, it's a crowded road that I'm not sure leads to legitimate, sustainable playing time. Even with that, just positional versatility in general, you'd be carrying, even if you're not counting Vierling as an outfielder, you're carrying 5 outfielders then, which I guess isn't the most egregious thing in the world, but like only one of them can play center field. So you're carrying 4 corner outfielders. It's really tough. I think there is playing time to be had, though, is what we'll end this conversation on. Even if at full health, I don't see a route for super sustainable playing time early on, at least. If he hits super well or takes big strides defensively, he will find playing time. He will get an opportunity. And he plays third in corner outfield, which Vierling does. Now, Vierling is objectively the better defender at this present moment. There's nothing that says Malloy can't develop into a better defender. And then he becomes a similar player on the defensive side of the ball, not in terms of like ability, but just in terms of where he's going to slot in in the lineup and how you work him into the lineup. Then Vierling has already been. And that's fine. I like Malloy's profile offensively significantly more than I've ever liked Matt Vierling's. But they clearly prioritize defense, and that's something that he's going to have to prioritize himself and improve on if he wants to find that route to sustainable playing time in the Tigers in 2024. Now, before I went on a tangent there, I said he's going to get playing time. And the reason why is because no outfield in the history of baseball has ever been 100% healthy for an entire season. Somebody's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get, like traded at the deadline. Something is going to happen to which one of those guys is going to miss time, and Justyn-Henry Malloy is going to get an opportunity. I don't think that Malloy is going to spend all of the season in the minors like he did in 2023. Now, I was convinced he was going to see major league playing time in 2023. So I've already been wrong about this once. I guess I probably shouldn't make anything that concrete. I probably shouldn't proclaim that like he's definitely going to get playing time at some point. But I don't think it's going to be early on if everybody's healthy. I think that's a tough road. I would welcome it if they just like I was wrong about the Badu and Carpenter situation last year. If I'm wrong and off base about it again, I would welcome it. I want to see this dude get at bats more than anybody. It's just I think it's probably going to be after a few weeks into the season, maybe a couple months into the season, and it might be at the expense of someone else missing time. But 5 outfielders has happened before, and we still have a whole offseason ahead of us. And that brings us to our final point, which is there any room for outside talent to be brought in? My short answer is no. And like I could run the credits now and send you out on your Thursday. But, when looking at free agent opportunities, everybody wants to point to Cody Bellinger because he's one of the best free agents in this week class. Bellinger had a phenomenal year, and obviously has been an MVP before, and like is a phenomenal talent when he's on. He's going to want a multi-year deal for a lot of money, and I'm not sure I am very confident in giving him a multi-year deal for a lot of money. Too inconsistent. And he fixed the bat path this year and tried to fix that hole in his swing and up and in the zone. And he had made a lot of adjustments and had a great year. He's a good defender, really good ball player. But the guarantee of sustainability, if you give him a 4-year deal, is that worth pretty much completely blocking permanently Parker Meadows is essentially what you'd be doing. Now, I'm not saying Parker Meadows is an MVP ceiling. So if you're like, screw you, kid, I want the dude that has an MVP ceiling, so be it. But the sustainability thing is something that doesn't change for me. That's a concern that I will have. But am I going to pout if they brought him in? No. I just think that there's probably different ways they could allocate that money to be more guaranteed production. That's all, especially for the money that he's going to get paid. And then after that, center fielders, there's really no one worth blocking Parker Meadows. Kevin Kiermaier is like the second best free agent center fielder on the market. Michael A. Taylor maybe. But there's not a whole lot of options there. Corner outfield. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say it. You don't have a lot of holes for corner outfielders. You want to bring in Lourdes Gurriel. I mean, had a pretty solid year. You want to bring in Jock Peterson, another lefty outfielder. Oh my goodness. Sure, I guess. Right? But no. I really do think that this was a conversation that before the Cana trade happened, I was an advocate for bringing in a righty outfielder, especially if Vierling's days in the outfield are going to be limited going forward. But now that you have Cana and you have Malloy waiting in the wings when he is ready, I don't think it's for a high priority at all. I don't even think it's a need at this point, to be honest. Teoscar Hernandez, solid year, obviously. Someone you could bring in. Hunter Renfroe, sure, I guess. Kind of a streaky, weird year with the Angels. Then you get into like Randall Grichuk, Will Myers, and like negative WAR players. Not a very good free agent class. Don't think you really have any need to go out and spend money on corner outfield with the depth that you already have at the position. Lastly is there any trade candidates out there? Hey man, look, if you want to bring in Juan Soto, we're parading down Woodward. Okay, we're throwing a party. Everyone's invited. All right. But I don't think the Tigers are going to be players for a Juan Soto trade because then they would have to convince ownership to extend Juan Soto, or else what's the point of trading for him? And I don't think that that's going to happen. That's a lot of money. After, if you want to throw a crazy prospect package at the White Sox for Luis Robert, and again, you want to just that's a righty with power, a lot of years of team control, fits in a little bit better. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think a lot of people would welcome that. I don't think that the White Sox are actually chomping at the bit to trade him. I think it's more of a situation of they're going to trade everybody but him for this rebuild, retool, whatever they're going to call it. And also it would be unbelievably ridiculous high asking price. They're going to ask for a boatload because that contract is so team friendly. So I'm not really holding my breath on that one. What else? Eloy Jimenez, no thank you. That's a DH specifically. Max Kepler. These are just guys that I've written down that could be possibilities. Seth Brown for the A's. Interesting, maybe. Yastrzemski for the Giants. Maybe, but again, you're talking about Yastrzemski, you're talking about a lefty. The only thing I could see them really maybe wanting is another right-handed outfielder, and you have Justyn-Henry Malloy. So, not really. My final prediction for what the outfield's going to look like next year is going to be Parker in center, Riley in left, Carpenter / Cana in right, whichever one isn't in the field. Sometimes getting a look at DH. Justyn-Henry Malloy maybe getting a look at DH. That his path would be lefty pitcher designated hitter. And do you want him getting at bats every day in Toledo, or once or twice a week at the major league level when a lefty is on the mound. Right? It's tough. It's tough. Okay. And I do think the last part, and then I promise I'll send you on your Thursday here. I also do think that the Riley Greene start to the year might be the in for Malloy as well. If there is one for the opening day roster, it's we don't want to play Riley Greene in the field every single day yet. So we are going to carry 5 quote-unquote outfielders, and Greene's going to get a lot of DH opportunities. That could be a path for Malloy. But I still think it's a really, really tough path. He'd have to hit really well in spring. He would have to show major strides taken defensively. That all being said, I am rather confident that he will play to some extent Major League Baseball for the Tigers in 2024. But that's my outfield. And I'm pretty pumped about it. Parker Meadows, very, very excited about his 2024. Riley Greene, obviously, hope he can stay healthy. Very excited about what he can do in a full season in year 3. Kerry Carpenter, excited what he can do after another offseason. Mark Cana, love the acquisition. I think that there's a lot of variance here. There's a lot of like Parker Meadows could have an OPS of 590 or 790. There's a lot of variance in some of these guys. Injury concerns with Greene, obviously, like Carpenter, maybe he turns into more of a strictly platoon guy. But there's also high ceilings across the board too. And that is room for excitement, cause for celebration. We'll take it. All right. Okay, feel like I was very scatterbrained this episode, so I apologize. We will be back tomorrow talking about the non-tender deadline, baby. All right, peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then. Go Tigers.